This session is going to explore how ESG principles can be integrated into security management practices. Many of you might be already doing some level of ESG in your current statuses, depending on whether it's become part of your performance goals or you're just passionate like me and you want to do what's right for the environment. So, my hope today is to cover the strategies to align security operations with the goals, looking at ethical considerations, what kind of risk mitigation strategies can be put in place, and how does that apply to the industry when it comes to the security industry. So what I'm going to do is share my screen with you guys as we go along. I like keeping the presentations to be interactive. And so I would encourage you to participate. We have the chat box open, so please do participate in that and let us know your feedback or your comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? We are learning together as we are all understanding even more and more about how ESG can be embedded into the security portfolios. And so the more we talk together, the more we collaborate, the better we learn. A little bit about what's on the agenda today. We're going to start with some opening remarks in which I'll give you a little brief background of who I am and what deems me to be here today to speak to you about such an exciting topic. I will focus on the evolving role of ESG in security and then go by the E, S, and G components of that so that I can leave you with a better understanding of how that applies. Some of you may be focusing on one of the three or all the three or two of the three. So this would be a great opportunity for you to also share what you might be doing that can help your peers in this cohort. And at the same time, learn something as well. And then I want to focus a bit more on the future trends and innovations. And then we'll kind of go into the closing remarks where we can, again, interact and share some ideas. So who am I? I'm Dr. Alka Kunger. I'm based out of Boca Raton in Florida, which is usually I say sunny Florida. It's so not sunny right now. It's been a very stormy week for us. So we've had rain every single day. But they say in Florida, more rain, less hurricane. So I'll take that. I'm also really excited because today marks my 25th year anniversary with my company. I've been with Johnson Controls, previously Tyco. This is my 25th year, and I started with security, and I've practically grown up here. So it's a very near and dear line of business to me. I've been part of different parts of the company through Tyco with Simplex, which was the fire company, ADT, Tyco, Sensomatic, the building solutions, and now I'm in the global field services. In my current role, I'm a customer value leader. So what I do in this role is I host customer advisory boards. I basically understand what's happening in the ecosystem around us and try to bring those insights through speaking to our customers, speaking to our influencers, doing a lot of market research and looking at trends to understand what should be driving our strategy. Uh, I also have a doctorate in organizational management and leadership, which I used to teach as an adjunct faculty member at a International School of Business, Lynn University here in Boca Raton. And the beauty of this is that I teach graduate students. And so when I look at them, I'm looking at my students of today who will become my customers of tomorrow or my consumers of tomorrow. So for me to understand where their mindset is, what is the emerging workforce looking for, it's a very insightful process because it helps me learn from them. So it's a two-way street. We are all learning from one another. And last but not the least, I'm a very proud ESG board member. I've been in this board from the beginning, and most of us who you see on this call today have. So it's very exciting and humbling to have this experience and to be in this position where you look upon, you guys are looking at us to give you advice, and we are looking at what we can learn to bring back to you. So like I said, we are learning as well. I'm very passionate about sustainability and practice it very firmly at my home as well, but also in my job. And so it's something that I hold very near and dear to my heart. And like I said, in this session, we are going to do a bunch of polls. We'll do some fun facts and all. So you have some valuable information to take back with you. And please do use the chat to interact with us so that we can learn together, we can work together. So let's start with why ESG matters. Let's first understand what ESG means and why is it even critical for the security industry. ESG, oh, I moved a slide, sorry. ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance, which is a framework which is used to evaluate an organization's sustainability, ethical impact, and governance practices. We know it is critical for the security industry because, from an environmental perspective, the security operations can adopt energy efficient technologies. reduce waste, and minimize environmental impact. From a social perspective, in security, ensuring equitable labor practices and community safety aligns with the social responsibility. And from governance, the strong governance builds trust through transparent operations and compliance with the regulations. So, prioritizing ESG helps the security industry meet stakeholder expectations. It also helps to drive innovation and support long term sustainability. Now, our growing stakeholder expectations are from three categories, as you can see. We have investors, regulators, and customers. So, from an investor standpoint, they focus on metrics, right? They are increasingly evaluating companies based on their ESG performance because these factors are linked to long term profitability and risk mitigation. They expect organizations to adopt sustainable operations and demonstrate resilience to climate related risks. Our regulators are looking at, they have stricter compliance requirements, right? So governments and regulatory bodies are introducing stricter rules on energy efficiency, waste management, and data protection. Regulators expect clear reporting on ESG efforts, including carbon emissions, ethical sourcing, and workplace diversity. And last but not the least, but most important, is our customers. They have a preference for ethical businesses because we know that customers prioritize companies that are aligning with their values like sustainability, social equality, and so responsible sourcing. They do have a demand for innovation. So consumers expect our products and services to be environmental friendly, but they don't want us to compromise on quality and performance. So we'll talk more about that. Customers are also failing to meet these, when we as a provider are failing to meet these expectations, we can result in reputational damage, loss of market share, and regulatory penalties, which make our ESG initiatives essential for growth and long-term success. So if you have been thinking about this and saying, well, not yet, or it's not quite ready for me, or I'm not really looking at ESG, now would be the time to do that because it is changing. Consumers are changing their mindset and they are looking for organizations and companies that can service them by being greener than a competitor who may not be looking at doing it that way. So let's start off with our first fun fact for the day. 70% of security companies report that ESG practices help them win new business contracts as clients are increasingly prioritizing sustainability and ethical operations. With that, let's start with our first poll. What do you think drives ESG adoption in the security industry? All right. So, yes, thank you. So 60% are saying that it's based on regulatory requirements. It's interesting, 0% are saying customer demand. So we'll talk about that. I like the cost savings for sure, and the ethical responsibility, that's 30%. So very interesting feedback here. Thank you for sharing. So let's talk more about that, right? When you think of ESG as a strategic imperative for security, it is becoming a strategic imperative because of its ability to drive long-term value, meet the stakeholder expectations, and align with operations with global sustainability and ethical standards. And here's why. So this chart is probably one of my busiest ones, but it is important. So I'm going to go through that. There are 5 things we've identified here. The first one is meeting growing stakeholder demands. When our investors are looking at ESG performance, it is a key metric now for them in investment decisions because they know that it's demonstrating risk mitigation or management, resilience, and commitment to sustainable growth. Like I mentioned previously, our regulators are looking at compliance with evolving environmental and social regulations. So they say it is critical to avoid penalties and maintain operational legitimacy. And for our customers, our modern consumers prioritize ethical businesses and expect security providers to offer sustainable and socially responsible solutions. The second one is driving competitive edge. Think of your brand reputation, right? Companies which align with ESG build trust, they build a positive image, and they attract more customers and employees and even partners. I don't know how many of you have seen that, but I know in our company, Johnson Controls, when we are looking at internal candidates and even external candidates, being green or having sustainable goals is a question that comes up a lot, and it's a conversation. They want to know more about what are you guys doing to be sustainable? What are your sustainability efforts? Tell us more. And that does become one of their decision-making factors in joining an organization. We also look at innovation opportunities, right? So ESG encourages the adoption of advanced technologies like energy efficient systems and most importantly, AI driven solutions, right? We are all looking at AI right now. We know they help reduce cost and improve efficiency, but how can we leverage AI from an ESG perspective in security is an interesting conversation. So I do have an example for you later on that I'll go into. ESG alignment sets organizations apart from competitors by showcasing commitment to sustainability and ethical practices. Number three is managing risks. So when you look at environmental risks, it's reducing carbon emissions, adopting sustainable practices. It mitigates risks from climate change related regulations and also resource limitations. From a social perspective, it addresses issues like data privacy, employee well-being, and community impact, which helps avoid reputational harm, but it helps foster trust. And that's what's really important in organizations as you're growing, making a high growth performing culture within your organizations. Transparent reporting and ethical decision making reduces the risk related to compliance failures and governance scandals, and that's where we have to be careful. Many of you may have heard of the word greenwashing. It's the new buzzword in the industry. It's something which our auditors have picked up, where in the industry, when you have organizations that claim that they have made an impact or reduced their carbon emissions and reported their metrics, sometimes those metrics are not ethically accurate and they are not maybe close to what has been reported. That's called greenwashing. And we have started seeing some companies that are being caught by doing that. So the auditors are doing a phenomenal job in capturing those and making sure that they are helping those organizations understand what does transparent and reporting and ethical decision making mean for them, so they don't get caught in that confusion or the ambiguity around that. Number four is enhancing the operational efficiency. When you look at sustainable systems, we think of energy efficiency, AI powered solutions. These are reducing costs, these are improving operational effectiveness. I think at this point, everybody knows that. And the reason I'm repeating this multiple times during this conversation and this presentation is so that it's something which kind of stays with you, because I want this to be something that when you leave from here, it's in your mind and you understand that here's how I can become sustainable. There are a few things I can do right away and a few things I need to start planning for. Organizations that have lean practices are being more successful. ESG principles promote waste reduction, optimization of resources, and that definitely leads to cost savings. And last but not the least is future proofing the business. So think of resilience, right? ESG frameworks prepare companies to navigate through future challenges like stricter regulations, resource scarcity, and even shifting consumer values. So being resilient is what becomes most important here. Aligning with ESG ensures sustainability, fostering innovation and adaptability in a rapidly evolving industry. So in the security industry, ESG is not, it's not really an option anymore. It is really part of a vital strategy because it helps you staying competitive, mitigating risk, and creating lasting value for your stakeholders. All right. If there are any questions, please do drop them into the chat and we'll follow them here. So let me know if you have any comments or any questions as well. Let's look at our next fun fact. The global market for green security technologies like energy efficient surveillance systems is projected to grow by 125% annually, reaching a $55 billion by 2030. That's a very sizable number, my friends. So please pay attention to that. Please start thinking about it. This is definitely something that is going to change the way you have been playing the business right now with security. With that, Adam, if we can open our next poll, what is the biggest challenge for the security industry in implementing ESG governance practices? Thank you. And if there's a challenge here that you don't see on this list, feel free to drop it in the chat so we can catch it from there. All right. I like this. 45% have said that it's a difficulty in measuring ESG performances. And that's really well pointed because that is something that the industry and especially those who are measuring sustainability metrics understand. And so they're trying to simplify that and they're trying to make it easier for us to use. Next is the resistance to change, which is another big one, 27%. And like I said initially, if you are resistant, now is the time to change that mindset because this is something that's going to help you really become sustainable. And through the examples I'm going to provide for the rest of this presentation, You may actually identify that you're already doing a few things you just didn't realize that you're indirectly impacting an ESG metric out there. So keep that in mind as we go through that. All right, and then we have 18% at cost of implementation, which makes sense, and then 9% which says lack of industry-wide standards, which is definitely a gap in the industry that's being looked at and needs to be tackled by the government for sure. All right, I'm going to move on to our next section, which is sustainability in security operations. Three areas of focus that I want to highlight here, right? So there's energy efficient systems that we've talked about, sustainable materials in the product design, what kind of plastic you use, what kind of greener products you can use instead, what does your packaging look like, right? Things like that. And then reducing emissions across manufacturing, logistics, and installation. Uh, Manufacturing is a big one. For those of you who do have manufacturing plants, think about the amount of energy you could save if you were switching to more energy efficient systems. And I'm going to give you examples which I've listed out here. So let's look at some of the examples and highlight some innovative green security technologies, starting with AI-powered solutions, right? We know that these are energy-efficient surveillance cameras, right? That's one great example, which is an AI-powered system. So these energy-efficient surveillance cameras and predictive analytics are helping to optimize power use. If you have already started looking at solar powered solutions, you can look at solar powered cameras and perimeter alarms, which reduce the reliance on traditional energy. Smart locks, sensors, remote management systems, things that we talk in the security industry day in and night, right? We talk about them all the time. These are efficient for your operations. These are your IoT security devices, right? So these are examples of what we see out there. In your biometrics access control, the examples I would share are energy efficient scanners, which eliminate disposable access cards. So those of you who are still using your cards right now, the plastic cards to get in and out of your premises and your buildings, think about how you can switch to more of a biometric access control solution. Under recyclable hardware, we've got devices made from eco-friendly materials which are designed for reuse and recycling. LED security lighting, I think many people have started looking at that. And so you've got motion activated LEDs and smart lighting systems which reduce energy waste. Those of you who don't know, we actually have sustainable drones, right? So there are solar powered drones. These are lightweight. And so these are designed for being more eco-friendly as they do their surveillance. And then our favorite, I think for everyone right now, data centers, which is one of the biggest topics that we hear all the time, is green data centers and how we can use renewable energy powered servers and efficient cooling systems for security software. So these are examples of technologies that enhance security while supporting your sustainability efforts. And talking of data centers, I do want to share something that might be new information to you. Not sure how many of you have heard this, but if you can use your reaction button out there and give me a thumbs up or a hands up, how many of you know that there are underwater data centers right now that exist? Anyone heard of them? Oh, there are. Okay, this somebody's hand has gone up. Great. Okay, so underwater data centers, they basically reduce energy use and cooling costs through natural ocean cooling. And there are companies like Microsoft, Nautilus, Hainan, and Subsea that are actually now putting together or have already started putting their data centers into the ocean. And they are trying to test to see how efficient and effective those are. That picture you see in that screen there is the one from Microsoft. And so it's very interesting how they have already started doing this, and we are looking to see what further results they can provide to us in terms of their success strategies. So I have a question in the chat. I'm going to address that first from Nina. It is ESG same as corporate responsibility, such as SEDEX and RBA? So the G part does become part of the governance and the corporate responsibility, and there are several different government regulatory bodies that are managing that. SEDEX and RBA could be one of those. I'm not familiar with SEDEX, but I can look it up and get back to you on that. But thank you for your question there. I appreciate it. All right. Fun fact to share with you, 78% of our consumers say that they are more likely to buy products and services from companies aligned with ESG values. So that's something to keep in mind, right? And with that, we'll jump on to our next poll, which is which areas of security operations do you think can benefit the most from sustainability practices? I do have something as others. So if you do check others, please jump into the chat and tell us what others are there that we have not addressed in our poll here. is interesting. So we've got three actually that have tied for waste reduction, sustainable sourcing, and digital-only documentation. Okay, that's 29% each. 14% are saying energy efficient systems, and we don't have anything on others at this point. So this is great. This gives an idea of how everybody thinks equally, how things are important, and how each of these benefits. So I appreciate you sharing your perspective there. Thank you all. Now let's move to the advancing on the social responsibility. And the important thing here is about building trust and social accountability. These are two components that are the cornerstone of ESG. So what I want to do here is get you some real world examples about how the social responsibility comes into play. The example I'm going to talk about is collaborative programs that you can do with your local communities or DEI initiatives. So one example we can talk about is implementing community-focused safety initiatives, which use inclusive and ethical practices. So a detailed breakout of that would be, say you have a community-centered surveillance and safety program. What does that really mean? It's deploying security technologies and programs to protect underserved communities while you are ensuring ethical use of surveillance systems. So you see there's certain components to that. So the key actions would be, how can you make this affordable? So when you partner with local governments or nonprofits to provide low cost or subsidized security systems like cameras and alarm systems in high risk neighborhoods, that's how you can provide an affordable security solution. Privacy in respecting surveillance. It's very important to help people understand that when we use an AI-enabled systems, while these are designed to minimize they should be designed to minimize unnecessary data collection and prevent bias in threat detection so that the ethical usage of those systems are in place. It's part of the reason why you see facial recognition, at least in the US, where sometimes we see governments and jurisdictions saying, yep, we are okay with facial recognition technology, let's bring it in. And then an incident occurs because suddenly they found that the system collected data that was not accurately identifying the threat, and it basically made a biased type of a decision. So they pulled back. And so what we are trying to understand is there a better way to use facial recognition? Maybe we can be a bit more flexible in the way we are using it, but we make sure that the data is being protected. So an example I'll give you is in West Palm Beach International Airport, which is one of my favorite airports that I use for travel. And many of you may have already experienced this in your travel experiences as well. When you go through the security line, there is a machine that takes a picture of your face. There's a huge warning or a big label there that says, image is only going to be captured for this moment. It gets deleted once you pass through the line. That's a great way of using facial recognition because now you're not holding on to that data and using it elsewhere or hoping it doesn't get misused elsewhere. It's an in-time type of a technology that is being used to verify the person who is traveling is good to travel, and that's all it does. So that is called privacy respecting surveillance. The next thing is diversity in the workforce. So think about being in this local community. When you're hiring and training security professionals from the local community, you're helping promote economic growth and representation. And then the public safety education becomes important because you want to make sure you conduct workshops to educate residents on cybersecurity, personal safety, and also their emergency preparedness. And last but not the least is using accessible security technology where you're developing systems that are accessible to individuals with disabilities, right? Maybe you have voice controlled alarms or you have enhanced visual cues. So these are the ways in which you can build that partnership in your community. The impact of that would be it builds trust between your security provider and the communities. You're promoting inclusivity, safety, and ethical transparency. It aligns with ESG by prioritizing social equity and community welfare. And this approach is really demonstrating how the security industry can help advance social responsibility while addressing safety and ethical concerns. I hope this example made sense. If not, please ask me any questions that you may have, and I'm keeping my eye on the chat here. Let's move on to my next fun fact. Organizations that invest in community safety programs see a 25% improvement in customer loyalty and brand reputation. I'll let you guys do the math, but to me, that's a pretty good number that you should pay attention to. All right, let's look at our next poll for social responsibility. What social responsibility initiatives are most relevant for the security industry in your perspective? All right. So we start with our highest tier on supporting employee well-being and mental health, which I really love. Thank you. Ensuring fair labor practices in the supply chain, definitely. 20% have said contributing to local safety programs, and 10% are saying to promote diversity and inclusion in the workforce. So think of the example I gave you and just let's see how, and kind of try to apply that as you go forward. When you are done with this meeting, think about those and how we can change these percentages to basically make all of these happen, right? Ideally, each of these should be at 25% because all of these are initiatives from a social responsibility standpoint that we should be fairly equitably managing. Okay, let's move on to governance. Now, there is a high level of importance of robust corporate governance in ESG success. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an example in which I'm going to highlight the best practices for supply chain accountability for you in 6 steps. The first one is sustainable sourcing, where you partner with suppliers who use eco-friendly materials and follow sustainable manufacturing processes. As supplier audits, you conduct regular audits to verify compliance with labor laws, environmental standards, and ethical practices. If you're using traceable systems, like you want to use technology like blockchain, you can track to the origin and the life cycle of the materials, ensuring the accountability of that. Vendors do require to adhere to a clear set of ethical and ESG standards, which is why you have that supplier code of conduct. So you want to make sure that whoever you're partnering with is aligned with you on what are your expectations and what do they need to be doing. When you think about the fair labor practices, it ensures that suppliers uphold fair wages, safe working conditions, and no use of forced or child labor. And then you have collaborative partnerships, which work with suppliers to adopt greener processes and improve ESG compliance collectively. So if you follow these best practices, the security industry can come together and create and enhance the trust. It reduces risks and aligns with ESG goals while we continue to prioritize our ethical and sustainable operations. So I hope this helps. And let's actually take another fun fact here. Cybersecurity, which many of you were wondering why I've not brought it up until now while I was saving it, is that cybersecurity breaches cost organizations an average of $445 million per incident. That's not a small amount. But proactive governance can reduce this risk by up to 40%. And there's one thing I'll tell you from some of the research I've read, more than 60% of the larger corporations have already have had a cyber incident. Now, this data is from 2023. We are 2 years later into this and it's still being measured. But what we are seeing is that while the incidents started increasing, there was definitely a goal that the industry jumped in to say that we are going to start putting in some type of proactive measures in place so that this $445 million per incident in 2023 doesn't keep exceeding and increasing. And that's helping. All right. So I hope that made sense. Let's look at our poll for governance, which is what governance practices are most critical for the security industry. 44% are saying that cybersecurity and data privacy, okay, are the most critical, and then ethical decision-making and leadership. I like both of them. And I think when you look at ethical decision-making and leadership, it kind of drives into cybersecurity and data privacy as well. 0% said compliance with industry regulations and standards, which is interesting. And then transparency in operations. So a good mix of responses here. Interesting to see how we don't see that compliance with industry regulations and standards are kind of driving governance practices. So that's something we'll look into and see if we can bring in more information to educate us and you guys as well at the same time. Okay, let's moving on to some emerging technologies that we are seeing are being driven that are ESG aligned in a manner, right? So when we think about emerging technologies, I think everyone starts thinking about AI. So we have AI-powered energy efficient detection systems that are currently representing a transformative approach to security operations. These systems are leveraging artificial intelligence to optimize energy consumption, while at the same time, it is maintaining high levels of accuracy in threat detection. So the key features that we are looking at and the benefits of AI-driven technology systems is Smart detection algorithms. When AI is analyzing real-time security footage to differentiate between normal movements, right? The trees are swaying, there's an animal passing by, versus a potential threat, someone's walking in with a gun, that helps reduce false alarms and unnecessary system activity. The second is energy optimization. These systems activate high power modes only when a threat is detected, significantly reducing energy consumption during idle periods. Then we have predictive maintenance, where AI monitors the system health, identifying potential issues with equipment before they escalate. It helps in minimizing the downtime and energy waste. And then you have integration with renewable energy. So many systems are capable with solar panels or other renewable energy sources, which helps further enhance sustainability. So let's look at an example of a use case. A commercial building which is equipped with AI-powered security cameras uses advanced motion detection and facial recognition to monitor entrances. During off-peak hours, the system operates in low-power mode, which scans only the high-priority areas. But when an unusual activity is detected, it activates the full function mode, alerting security personnel. So combined with renewable energy sources, this reduces the building's carbon footprint while maintaining its robust security. So you see how it's doing the three things there, right? The renewable energy, carbon footprint, and security at the same time. So what is the impact of sustainability of doing something like that? It reduces the energy consumption because now you've got intelligent systems which are helping lower electricity usage by say up to 40%. That contributes to significant cost savings and environmental benefits. Longer equipment lifespan. Predictive maintenance ensures efficient performance, reducing waste from premature plants. Lower carbon emissions is the combination of energy efficient technology and renewable energy integration, which decreases greenhouse gas emissions. So, as AI technology continues to evolve, these systems will become even smarter, enabling real time adaptation to dynamic environments, further improving efficiency and sustainability. So with that, I'm going to move to our next last fun fact and poll. 90% of companies in the S&P 500 now publish ESG reports compared to only 20% a decade ago. So when we think about that poll where I think a high percentage of you said that tracking ESG is difficult, the industry understands that. Companies are going to the industry to say, we want to report, but we need you to help us report it in a better manner. And that's where this effort is going. And that's why you're seeing this increase, which is a pretty good increase to pay attention to. So let's look at our final poll of the day. Which area of environmental impact should should the security industry prioritize? And again, if there's something we've not covered here, please put that into the chat. So the first one is energy efficiency and waste reduction and recycling, which makes total sense. All right. And then we have carbon footprint reduction and then sustainable sourcing of materials. All right. This is also interesting to see because like we've been seeing through this presentation, actually all of them become equally important, right? So the idea is how can we make sure that as we do one, it kind of has a domino effect on the others. And collectively, each of these areas should become important for the security industry. So thank you for sharing that. There's a question again, Nina, from you on the chat on how is ESG matched to cybersecurity that has its own standards, like the one you've mentioned. They go hand in hand, right? So what's happening right now in the industry is that the regulatory bodies are kind of collaborating to make sure that if there are sustainability impact through the cybersecurity KPIs that are being measured, that kind of translates to what the ESG metrics would be for overall security. And if your organization is looking at cybersecurity, then that would feed into that. So I hope that answered your question. And that's a really good question. Okay, so the security industry can align with ESG principles while they're driving innovation by integrating sustainable, ethical, and governance-focused practices into its operations. These are the key takeaways. I'm not going to go through everything here because it is a busy slide, but let's just touch on a few things here. On environmental, the way you can become efficient is adopt energy efficient technology, sustainable sourcing, reducing waste, and carbon neutral operations. Uh, right now, we are seeing a lot of solar powered solutions that are coming in, solar powered surveillance systems, which is something that's something you should look forward to. And so we are trying to identify how do those fit into our industry and how can we leverage them. Under social alignment, enhance the workplace equity, make sure you're looking at community safety programs, and be transparent in your communication. Because if you want to build trust with your customers, it's the best way to do that. Once customers see that you are prioritizing their safety and ethical practices, they become much more loyal to you and they stick to your brand. And on governance, strengthen your cybersecurity measures, right? When we look at things, compliance regulations like GDPR, uh, data protection, those are things which you want to make sure that as you look at cybersecurity as your one of your components or pillars, maybe you are adhering to all the regular regulations that are being put through. ESG reporting, which we've all talked about, that it is continuously evolving, it is continuously improving. And so the ESG board, the members who are here, we take the responsibility to bring that to you, and we will share that with you as we learn more and more. And then, of course, ethical innovation. It's great to be innovative. It's great to be creative. Make sure it's being done in a responsible manner. And finally, as you think about driving innovation while aligning with ESG, develop solutions like AI-driven monitoring, right? Predictive analytics, IoT connectivity, and that's going to help enhance efficiency and reduce the resource use. Another example is circular economy models. Innovate your product design and manufacturing to ensure that the equipment can be reused, repaired, or recycled. And my last example is to have collaborative partnerships. Partner with the green technology providers so that you can co-create sustainable security solutions. So by embedding ESG principles into your innovation strategies, the security industry can balance sustainability goals with cutting edge advancements, gaining competitive advantage, and in the same time, you're meeting your stakeholders' demands. So that's all I had today. Thank you all for your time and attention. I really appreciate everyone's engagement and the thoughtful questions we have here and the feedback. And please do remember, ESG in security is a shared responsibility. It's for your interest, it's for our interest, but it's our commitment which is going to drive meaningful progress, right? So let's continue to collaborate. Let's innovate towards a more secure and sustainable future. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, and together we'll keep exploring and learning as we bring more and more value to you. Thank you. Renee, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alka. If you don't mind, I had at least one or two questions on my end, and everybody feel free to drop any questions you might have for Dr. Alka on this topic in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer those as well. On my end, just interested to see if you had any real life examples you could share on how ESG principles have influenced real world decisions in security operations, whether that was, an environmental, social, or, policy stakeholder engagement. Any examples you have that you might be able to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a really simple one, and I kind of touched upon it earlier in one of my slides, but in a conversation I had with my security customers, we were looking at examples, and it was interesting how many, like I said, how many people are already doing some of the things that we are doing and not realizing that, hey, I'm actually fulfilling some ESG goals. My favorite example, believe it or not, is when we moved from plastic cards, right? When we have our badges, we still use badges, right? There are large, small, medium companies. We all still use badges. To me, I feel that if we can replace that with the better biometric access solutions, control solutions, it's a game changer, right? It not only does that, you take away plastic completely, right? You are making sure you have a better way of tracking the data that's coming in as well. And it's an easier way to do it. It's one of the, what I call my shortest hanging fruit that everybody can kind of get into. It doesn't cost as much because it actually, the cost benefit analysis like speaks for itself when you look at it. But that's my first example that I like throwing out there, that if you're still using badges, just start using some kind of a different app. I mean, if you look at the emerging workforce that's coming into the workplace today, the one thing that they will always carry with them is their phone. And it's interesting how they are absolutely comfortable scanning their phone anywhere and everywhere. Facial recognition is not a concern to them. They are happily, ready, very willing to show their face and get scanned. And it doesn't, no one bats an eyelash. But I know people in my generation kind of wonder like, oh, I wonder where that data is going. I wonder if it comes back to bite me. But those are things which I would say that as this industry, as we are also starting to think about what our new workforce is looking like, take advantage. If they are so comfortable using their mobile apps, then let's start looking at mobile credentialing, and let's look at doing that kind of an access control system versus sticking with the same old plastic badges. I mean, I still keep a picture of my license now on my phone so that if I go someplace and I didn't carry my wallet, I still have my license to show that it's me.
No, that's a really great example. And I like the lowest hanging fruit example of just it being something that is relatively simple with, you know, kind of the
Right.
technology that currently exists. You're not having to wait on the innovation part of it to happen. Just another question on my end.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen kind of like you've had a long career, as you stated, like, so that's like, so like, you know, a lot of experience there. So what are the biggest challenges you think you faced in trying to align ESG goals with traditional security priorities, and how have you been able to work to overcome those?
Thank you. I would say that it's the education and the awareness, because many times people don't understand how ESG can impact their business and bring better, cost optimization along with doing the right things. But being able to show that, and which is why I infused a lot of examples in my presentation today, because I wanted to make sure that everybody had something that they could take back. Uh, because, and that's where I think the biggest gap in the industry is, when you start explaining it to people and showing them the value of doing it and looking at what benefit it's going to bring, then the minds open up and the wallets open up as well. But it's the gap I see. The biggest challenge I've seen is, I would say there's a hesitance and a resistance to change, but that can also be mitigated when we start explaining it better to everybody on how it works. It took me a while to actually put my head together in the beginning when this board was formed. Uh, we've been on this board from the beginning, and I used to wonder, like, how does security fit into this? So it took me a lot of studies and attending different webinars and trying to understand, for me to then be convinced that yes, this is the way to go. And then of course comes the practical examples of testing and trying and seeing the results. Now I'm a believer. So what I would say to everybody is that if you are still questioning this and not sure, reach out to the ESG board. We are here to help. We are here to help you understand and make you aware of where you can make the highest impact. But that has been my biggest challenge that I've seen thus far.
That's awesome. And thank you for sharing. You had a great presentation. I love the interactiveness of your presentation. That was really awesome. I was really sad that I didn't get to participate in the poll, unfortunately. So we'll definitely have to talk about all those topics at some other point between the two of us. So thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you presenting on that topic and sharing with us today. Our next topic is going to be sustainability as a strategy, aligning purpose with performance to deliver client value.